All right, so last week we talked about getting reviews, and that's going to be a great way of getting some buzz going for your book. But now let's talk about a way that you can start generating some interest on your own, and this is a creative method, and personally one that I find very fun. Okay, so you've written your book, and hopefully that means that you understand it better than anybody. Maybe your editor understands it better, depending on your relationship with him or her. But as the person who is the creative force behind your book, this I think should be hopefully easy for you to say, okay, what's an angle that I can attack of my book that I can use to suck readers in, but not give them anything too much. So think about you know um, uh, certain books we look at and very quickly we know like what the hook is. So something like I just finished reading it. Something like it is kind of obvious because of how it's also because of how the cover is and because of how um, the book itself is famous at this point. So let's not use that as as an example. I've read two books by Grady Hendrix that I think are great examples of like very quickly based on the title and the cover art. I have an idea what the book is about, and the concept, not just the fact that the genre, which a lot of times cover art can help you figure out, oh, that's a romance, that's a uh, horror, But these books, I think, give away not necessarily the story itself, but like what is unique about the book within the genre. So you look at the final girl support group. Um, we know the term final girl if you're a horror fan. And we've got the support group like folding chair that is pretty ubiquitous with AA and support groups and other um, church basement types of groups. And so we have an idea that this book is going to be about girls who've survived horror movie scenarios. And what I just told you, it's not a spoiler, but it's the specifics of this book, and you will very quickly be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what this book delivers on. But that's without releasing any information that's like, oh, that was a spoiler. Oh, same thing with the Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying. We get the peaches have bite marks in them, so you get this idea of it's going to be a combination of maybe like almost like a genre mash of horror and comedy. I actually think that the title and the peaches remind me of like fried green tomatoes, but then obviously with the vampire and everything else, you kind of get the feeling that it's horror. All right, so you want to decide what is that hook that you can get people in with. That's going to be your angle, and that's going to be the thing that you're going to say, okay, this is what I'm going to expand on in my marketing, and it won't be necessarily something that gives away everything. And in certain genres, this is easier to do with. I think horror is an example of a genre where it's very simple to be like, this is the concept, and without and people still want to enjoy that, and see that. So, but other genres obviously can, there's hooks. I just heard about Girl Dinner by, I'm forgetting the author's name. I'll put it up right here. In that book, someone explained. I heard someone talking about it at a book thing that I was at a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "That's a really fascinating concept." Um, but also, you could take if depending on what you're, again, this is mostly genre dependent, but your title itself might be the beginnings of what I'm talking about. So you've got those two books, the titles kind of give away a good amount, the cover art gives away a good amount, but then you can start catering you can start taking that theme that you find in those things and making that your marketing theme. So if I was doing the final girl support group, um, marketing, for example, I might go and say, um, post post it in, like make little posters like you would do for a bulletin board, and I might like go post those in places that allow me to, um, and say, hey, this is a good, here, check out the Final Girl support group on Tuesday, and like use the date that of release or whatever as the meetup day, and like make it that style. Um, and then throughout the process, maybe do more and more of that, keeping those ideas kind of anchored in your theme. So that's also gets me into my next point, which is, it becomes kind of easy for us to think about marketing in this day and age as online marketing and social media marketing. And with books, that's a huge deal. TikTok and Instagram and YouTube are responsible for so much book marketing, and a lot of it's really effective and really good. But is that the only way to go about it? No, I don't think so. And I also think, like, at this point, you have to diversify how you're going to do it, because every the marketing is so saturated that it's hard to stand out. So standing out in other ways might help you pop and then get that audience going. So one of the things that I'm doing for my own book, just as an idea of something that's partly online but mostly not online, is I had these bookmarks printed up. And I know, not the best graphic designer ever, but the bookmark is, it says, you are cordially invited to the dinner party on November 4th. I think I remember that date, November 4th. And whenever I drive by a little library, which are those little boxes that you find on neighborhoods and school parking lots and stuff, the little boxes on a post that look like a little house mixed with a mailbox. There's books in there, and that for people to take and leave for free. And I have a bunch of these in my car. I got 1,000 for $50. And I go and I'll just, grab a handful and go up, and my book is an adult book. So I only put I don't put these in the kids' books. I don't go to the ones at schools, but I'll stuff the books, I'll put one per book in there. And if you look at the back, on the back, there is a QR code. It says RSVP and then the QR code. And the cool part about that is that if someone scans, it also has my Instagram on there, to have people follow my Instagram. If someone goes on and scans the QR code, they are led to a web page. I'll link to a similar page so you can see the style. And it tells them, it says, thank you for coming to the dinner party. And it then tells them like all the different ways that they can help support me, since if they scan the QR code, they're at least curious and they probably want to support in some way. I lead with the free options typically, because I think that getting someone to invest in free is not as hard as getting them to want to spend money. But just because it's free for them doesn't mean it's not helping you. So, here's the ISBN. You can go to your local library and ask them if they'll be able to get it for you when it comes out. If you don't want to go to Amazon, you can go to a bookstore, which obviously is paid, but and here's the ISBN. Go grab it there. It'll be on. A lot of times people are renting digital copies from the library, or borrowing digital copies. So I have the ISBN for my digital, my ebook. So it's just one method, but like it's catered to my particular book because it looks like an invitation. And if you come up with something creative like that, it can make you stand out and make it memorable for people. I think that it's important to not just use this as like a one-time marketing thought. This is kind of a theme. Now, I'm not saying you have to. Not all of your material has to be in this theme, but you can use this almost like a campaign. If you're familiar with marketing, it's not the only way of attracting business, but it's a way of attracting business. Well, for the marketing theme in this, I think you should follow through. So, like using my own example again, I on the day that I announced my book, made a little invitation, says you're cordially invited. I've been putting these out that look like little invitations. And then on the day of release, November 4th, I'll probably post something along the lines of dinner is served, along with the dinner party information. So like keeping a theme, keeping, your marketing is, you're a storyteller, you wrote a book, even if it's nonfiction, it's a story. And telling a story through your marketing is just as beneficial and important. Keep in mind, this is hard. I know, like, this is hard to remember, but no single effort is going to be the thing that makes or breaks your book. Um, you could have the best, written book in the world, and if no one reads it, nobody knows about it. They're not going to know to tell people that it's good. And vice versa. If you have a great marketing scheme or marketing, strategy, and if you have a great marketing strategy, but you have a lousy book, it's going to not be, you might make some initial sales, and then once word of mouth gets around, it'll drop. So you want to try to be using all these things kind of in tandem. So last week we talked about reviews. Reviews, in a lot of ways can help, but like if someone tells me about a book that I'm like talking to in conversation and I've never heard about that book, there's a good chance it's going to go in one ear and out the other. If they're like, oh, this book, and I've heard a bunch of people, talking about the book online, but I know this person, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I read the, I read Tender is the Flesh, and I loved it. Then I'm going to be like, oh, okay, well, I knew that one online already. Now I've got like a personal. So that's why these things have to work in tandem together, and that can be tough for a lot of us to kind of like remember that, like, you know, this isn't the thing, this isn't the thing, this whole thing is the thing. And so it's not enough to just have a good book. It's not enough to just have good reviews. It's not enough to just have good marketing. You have to try to have all three. Um, and, and you also have to, unfortunately, you have to have patience, and you have to just know that, like, this might take a while, even under the best of circumstances. So now I want to talk about gearing up for publication date. So I am less than 3 weeks away from my own publication date at this point. And by the time next week's video comes out, it'll be a week and a half. And I have been doing some of what I'm going to tell you about with the gearing up for it. And I'm really excited. We're getting into the fun part of the chaotic part, but the fun part. Doing this kind of marketing has been really fun, and gearing up for my book to come out has been really fun, and I'm really excited to talk to you about it next week. So please like and subscribe. And if you come, if you want to know more, join me next week. Go back and see the other episodes if you haven't. And I am like, currently, if you want to read this instead of watching every week, if you want to, have something more in writing, I do have that linked in the show notes as well. So thank you.